I don't follow a very conventional path for most things. Yeah. The biggest thing I learned from working with a concrete crew for like 6 months was that I don't want to do concrete for the rest of my life, so I got to figure out something else. Right. I've never, flown on an airplane before. I've never traveled like other than like New York, Kentucky. That was it. And then like I got this job where I'm like traveling around the country, traveling around the world. Right there.
Nice. Heck yeah.
The tank top underneath. Pulling like an Alex Hormozy with like the flannel with the tank top. You're an Alex Hormozy guy, aren't you? Do you know who Alex Hormozy is?
I don't know if I know who that is.
Seriously?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, come on, man. He's like one of the biggest, probably, creators in like the entrepreneurship space.
Okay.
And YouTube and stuff like that. You'd really like his stuff.
You're an
ambitious.
You'll have to send me his
entrepreneurial
name. I'm not a good
guy.
Speller. Send me like the links or a link to his stuff, and I'll definitely keep up with him. I'm always down to get to know new people doing the things that we do basically.
Yeah.
Sweet. Heck yeah.
You said 45 minutes?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Honestly,
okay.
Yeah. Sweet. So I'm here in northern Kentucky. My stomping grounds with Cody Lutz. Cody, essentially, we connected on Facebook, and first of all, I appreciate you, doing this. It's a pleasure. Help me kind of like get this kick started.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's super cool, and especially because when I saw like the type of person you are, man of faith, someone who is a family man. Someone who takes care of themselves, definitely, type of person that I like to be around, essentially. Someone that I, like to see myself as, family man who takes care of himself, man of faith. And yeah, no, so the first thing I like to ask people is basically, what do you recall your earliest defining moment being? And it could be anything in regards to just basically, what do you credit happening to your life at the earliest stage that basically, got you to where you are now, or may influence, how you go about life now, may have had the most impact on your life currently. So. Hey everyone, before we continue the segment, don't forget to subscribe, like, dislike, leave a positive comment, leave a negative comment. I don't care. Thanks for watching, and now on to the program.
Earliest is an interesting distinction.
So I'll explain why I say earliest. So for me, the answer I give to that question is when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Yeah. When was that?
I was diagnosed when I was 2. So arguably that's like the first thing to ever happen to me. Some, if it could happen to other people, some may say that, it's, a secondary thing to them. They take care of it. It's not really something that has impacted their lives in a sense. It's impacted my life in the sense that it just, basically influences me to be a healthy person, to take care of myself. And to this day, because I've always, I don't know what life is like without it. So right. It's, and I don't like to, give the answer in regards to like, my parents and like where I come from and whatnot, because, obviously before I was born, people could look at my parents and, say like, oh, they're going to give birth to this type of person. He's going to be raised in this type of household under this type of faith. Rather than, once the individual is born and then life starts happening to them. So yeah, I mean, if the family, is the thing that, is that is your earliest defining moment, then by all means. But if there is something else for sure, then, definitely.
There's so many different pieces that go into making us who we are, right? Some are influences that we are born into. Some are things that happen to us. Some are choices that we make and the consequences of those, good or bad. the earliest, in a sense, there is some degree in which being born in a Christian household with Christian parents influenced a lot of the trajectory of my life. One of the things that was really impactful for me early on and has absolutely shaped everything that I've done so far is the fact that I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled, yeah, all the way through, except for like half a year in first grade. We went to like a Christian school for like half a year. My parents were like, especially my mom was like, "Nope, that is not good for you." Like, just some of it, like I was just very like impressionable and whatnot from a lot of the kids and stuff, and so I was homeschooled for most of my growing up, and that in a lot of ways has shaped who I am and how I view the world and how I view myself. In some ways, here's the biggest way. Here's how. I don't follow a very conventional path for most things.
Yeah. No,
right.
Yeah.
like I don't have a college degree. I moved to Kentucky, 8 hours away from where I grew up in New York, when I was 19 to come like where I didn't know anybody and work for this organization called Answers in Genesis in Northern Kentucky. Just because I was like, well, I think there's going to be opportunity here, so I'm going to like move my whole life here, and there's more opportunity here than where I was back home in this tiny little country town in New York, this little farming community. It's not conventional. Didn't go to college, not conventional, went straight into the workforce. Just a lot of different things. And even like what I'm doing now as far as building a business, leaving my W-2 job and living off of our savings for 6 to 8 months and building this coaching business. And now even what I help people do as a coach is to think differently. And so I suppose you could look back and say that did start in the sense of being homeschooled in this sort of non-conventional educational setting, where there's a million different kind of ways that homeschooling can look, and some people are very like traditional, like rigid, class schedule and structure, to like the opposite extreme where some people are like kind of unschooling and you don't even really do any kind of formal like book study. Right. We were somewhere in the middle, but it was fairly relaxed, and really the emphasis was like we did actual math, science, all that kind of stuff. But I think there was just such a focus on like exploration and learning and love of knowledge and love of figuring stuff out and creating, and that was really fostered in us. And so I think that really shaped a lot of who I am.
Nice. No, that's a lot to unpack there. That's all great to hear. I actually just had this conversation with my cousin that I was just telling you about before we started recording. He was in town. Him and my cousin were in town with their 2 children. They're based out in Austin currently. And he and I were just conversing about, schooling and what they want best for their kids. And currently their oldest kid, he's 4. He's in public school, and then there's a portion of the week where he does like some sort of outdoor activities. Yeah. And they're wanting to transition into a more sort of flexible based schedule, possibly outside of the system that they're in right now, that would allow him like less time in the classroom, more time doing practical stuff, some time where the parents do homeschooling for them too. And when he and I had talked about this, one of the things that I had always thought of when it came to schooling and homeschooling is the social aspect and stuff like that. How, one could argue that it's important to be put in an environment where you're forced to be around people that you wouldn't necessarily, choose to be around if it was up to you, where authority, has, its sort of own way of raising its youth during the day within the community that they're in, especially if we talk about like private school versus public school versus homeschool, and how each one, you know, has its benefits, has its cons. You know, nothing's perfect essentially. But it is really cool to see, you know, someone like yourself who was homeschooled majority of their life, you know, turn out to be, you know, the person that you are, because, you know, I honestly haven't met many people who have been homeschooled their whole life, and have really, you know, gotten to know them afterwards and whatnot. I think you're honestly the first person I've met who has been homeschooled before.
Oh, nice.
So it is really refreshing to see, you know, someone like yourself, because, and it's not even, you know, homeschooling itself can, you know, like damage one's social life and ability to be social, because there are many, you know, outlets and organizations and, you know, places within your community outside of the school where you can be social, especially someone like yourself who's of faith, who comes from, you know, faithful background. I'm sure you went to church growing up.
Yeah.
You know, you get that same sort of, you know, dynamic, you know, the dynamic of being social in school comes in, you know, many different, you know, areas, like being in church, like, you know, joining a league, like a sports league outside of school, stuff like that. So that's amazing. That's awesome. And you had mentioned you had came from New York. Tell me what, you know, New York was like for you. What was it, just the job that brought you here? You know, what was that whole transition like?
Yeah. I grew up in a pretty small farming community in Western New York by Buffalo. So people think of New York, they think tall buildings, taxi cabs, right? Like,
right, yeah.
You know, not that New York. Like the part of New York that people don't realize exists, which is like the redneck part of New York, which is funny because people don't really think that there's a redneck part of New York. But most of New York State is like very agrarian, or like agriculture and farming. And so I grew up on a dirt road in a little, you know, town of like a few hundred people. And most of the people that I knew, like, lived on a dairy farm, worked on a dairy farm. My dad worked with dairy farmers, and so that was like the world that I grew up in. Homeschool, it was great, dude. Like simple childhood. Like we grew up with woods and out in the country, so we were just running around in the woods all the time and riding dirt bikes and stuff like that. So it's just amazing. Like I would love the same thing for my kids. Honestly, we've got a couple acres now. Nice. The dream would be like big farm, or like not big farm, but like big property and like all that stuff. It's just good, man. It's good for kids to explore and to like just get out there. But very much how I grew up, just out in the country, small town, small church, and it was good. But at the same time, when I was getting into my like teenage years, I worked, you know, graduated high school, worked for like a construction crew, like doing concrete, which was the biggest thing I learned from working with a concrete crew for like 6 months was that I don't want to do concrete for the rest of my life, so I got to figure out something else,
right?
Because that sucks, man. It's hard work. But so I did that, but then we went and came as a family to the Creation Museum here in Northern Kentucky.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever been there. Great, really cool museum. It's over by the airport.
Okay, I haven't. I know of it. I just haven't been there yet.
Yeah, super cool. Check it out sometime. That, and then now the Ark Encounter that they also have down in Williamstown, Kentucky.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I've heard of it. Again, heard of it. Haven't been there.
Yeah. So the Ark didn't exist yet, but the Creation Museum did. So we came down when I was like maybe 18, 17, something like that, as a family for like a vacation. Went to the Creation Museum and stayed here in Northern Kentucky, like in Florence, and I was like, this is really cool. We met some people. My brother actually at the time was the one who like first got interested in working here. He was like, dude, I would love to work for this organization. I think it's really cool, like the mission, what they're doing, the people. And so he actually got a job on the web team producing, like writing content as like a content marketing editor.
Nice.
And so he moved down, and then shortly thereafter, I also was like, well, I'm looking for like what I'm going to do next in life. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go. But one thing that I've learned is if you don't know what you want to do, like I talk to a lot of young people in their like early 20s and stuff like that, you know, like young men graduating college, and like, man, like I don't know what I want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, literally do anything, because like it's easier to steer a plane once it's up in the air flying than if it's sitting on the runway.
Right.
So just get into action and you'll figure out the direction that you do want to go as you take action. And if you don't know what you want to do, figure out the type of person that you want to be and put yourself in close proximity to other people who are like that. And so that for me was the biggest insight of like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that there's a lot more of the type of people that I want to become at this organization, in this area, especially more than like this tiny little town, tiny little church that I'm in. So I moved down, and like my brother and I lived together for like the first year, and I just got a job in the warehouse. Worked in the warehouse. In fact, how I got this job is really interesting, Zaid. I came down and I like lived with my brother for a couple weeks, stayed with him, and just worked in the warehouse as a volunteer for 2 weeks for free. And I told, because they had like, as a nonprofit organization, so they have like, you know, work groups come and stuff, and like youth groups or whatever.
Right.
They would come and do work and volunteer. So I came down, like they had a talk with their volunteer coordinator. I was like, hey, I want to volunteer in the warehouse. And they're like, okay, cool. And the guy thought I would be there, like usually volunteers, they'd come work for a couple hours and they'd like go leave and do something else. And I was like, no, like I show up at 8 a.m., I leave at 5 p.m. And like the manager was like, dude, you can like go home now. I was like, well, everybody else is still working, so I'm going to still be here.
Right, yeah.
And I worked like 40 hours a week for like 2 weeks. And I told the manager of the warehouse, I'm like, I'm going to come work for you, man. I'm gonna come work for you. You're going to hire me and I'm going to come work for you. He's like, I don't even have a job. I don't even have a job opening. I don't even have, like, I can't even hire you.
Right.
I said, well, do you want to? And he said, yeah, I do want to, actually. I don't have a position even approved, but I need another person. And so I'm gonna talk to like HR and see if I can get a position approved. And so then like I went home back to New York, like got his number, and I was like, called him a few weeks later. I'm like, hey, do you have that position approved yet? He's like, no, like, hang on, like I'm going to. I'm like, it's almost approved. So then he approved it. Called me, told me to apply, applied, got the job, came down and worked. But then the next problem was that I was working in this warehouse, but that was just my foot in the door. I was like, really, I want to work in like the main corporate office, like where all like the big boy jobs are, like in the office, you know, the real jobs. I don't want to be like this warehouse person. So I quickly got like promoted in the warehouse, because I would just be the guy that just got stuff done, or like I would show up before everybody else. And then like he gave me a shift where I would come in like 2 hours before everybody else. And so I was supposed to leave like 2 hours before everybody else. But then I would be like, hey man, do you have any other work? I'll just stay till 5. Like, and so I got all the overtime, and he would just, you know, give me all the work and give me all the overtime. But we went over to the main office, and I was like, I really want a job in the main office, like a real job. And we would go over to that office every like Tuesday and Thursday for like 30 minutes for a staff meeting. And so I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity. So I would go into that, like when we would drive over to the office, and like the corporate office, go and sit in this staff meeting, I would like walk in and I would shake hands with every single person that I would meet, like in the hallway, because I'm like, my problem is like I work off-site in this warehouse, like no one over here is going to even know who I am. Right. So like that was my main like barrier next, was like people need to know who I am. People need to know who you are.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
People don't know what you have to offer if they don't know who you are. Number one rule in business, number one rule, like if you're trying to run your own business in advertising and marketing, like people don't know what you have to offer if they don't know who you are. If they don't know you exist. You can have the best thing to offer. If no one knows you exist, you got nothing.
Yeah.
Same thing at work, same thing in your career. People need to know who you are and what you have to offer. And so I would just walk in and shake hands, like, hey, I'm Cody from the warehouse. I don't think I've met you yet. What do you do? And I would do that with like everybody. So like every week, eventually, like everybody would be like, hey, it's Cody from the warehouse. Like, yeah, what's up, James? You know, like the editor, you know, of the magazine, whatever, you know. Yeah. And so I met tons of people, and then like 9 months into that job, an opportunity came up to like run conferences and events as an event coordinator. And I applied for that, and like got the position. I had never like even been on an airplane before I traveled. Like my entire job was like to coordinate and schedule traveling and to travel for these events. I had like was too young to rent a rental car legally. You had to be like 21, and I was like 20, so I couldn't. I could rent the car for someone else, but I wasn't allowed to drive it. And then until I turned 21,
Right.
and then I was like, I had never been on an airplane before, but they hired me, so I got my real job.
That is an amazing story. I love hearing those. Like, it's not. I mean, it's not often. I can't recall the last time I've heard a story where, and it's the ideal type of scenario I want for everyone. Basically, is them showing up somewhere, showing that they're passionate of just helping. One thing my cousin and I were talking about while they were in town was, just being someone that, is reliable to the point where, it doesn't matter what's going on. Mm-hmm. If you show up and the person in charge, asks you to do something, and of course it's up to them, if they know that, they want you to do something that, you might not have experience in, but they can explain to you how to do it in a way that, can kind of give you a foundational understanding. You might have questions, of little nitty-gritty stuff throughout the process of like, these one-offs that take place throughout the, the main sort of drive. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot of the times people saying that, 99% of the jobs can be taught, like right there.
Everything is figure-outable.
Yeah.
Everything is figure-outable.
Literally.
And when you show up with that mindset, where someone says, "Hey, can you do this?" and you say, "Well, I've never done it before, but I'll figure it out." Like those type of people, those are the most, like every successful type of every successful person that you admire is in some way that type of person. Like, I don't know, but I can figure it out.
Literally, yeah, absolutely.
And when you replace like, "I've never done that before," with "I'll figure it out," like it opens all the doors.
Right.
I've never flown on an airplane before. I've never traveled like other than like New York, Kentucky. That was it. And then, like I got this job where I'm like traveling around the country, traveling around the world, and yeah, when you show up and also that work ethic to say like, be the one that figures stuff out for people. Be the one that people go to, that your boss goes to figure stuff out or to get stuff done. Like, dude, there's endless opportunity for people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely, it's like, being the one who sticks out, the one who, the one in charge looks to when, they want to get stuff done. That is an amazing, success story.
And you're that kind of person too. I mean, skateboarding, playing guitar, martial arts, YouTube. Like, you've got like 7,000 followers on YouTube, man.
Yeah.
Subscribers. Yeah. So like, you've done a lot of really interesting things where you're just like, well, I've never done that, but I'm going to figure it out. Like, it seems fun. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. I have. I've never done something that I know I don't want to say that it's, that I'm passionate about these things. Like, I love to do the things that I do. Some might, attribute that to me being like a hyperactive person. I have a really hyperactive mind. It doesn't help me sleep much. I am very thankful for, I thank God all the time that like I, have been consistently waking up, the same person and with intentions on being a better person every day. And also, having the abilities that I do, even though it may not seem like much, like they're hobbies and stuff that I like to do. I just know that when I want to do something, I will go, through and through with it, regardless. And it's weird because it really gives you a sort of this, it really breaks down what we think success is.
How so?
So I used to make music, and I approached it in the manner of how like the music industry has its artists make music. I would like go a route of, crafting an album, releasing it on a Friday, promoting it, releasing a single like a month later, working on another project, waiting a certain amount of time, promoting that project, going down that path and whatnot. And I was able to do shows in the city. I was able to do, things that, put me on a spectrum of, that, was it successful? Was it a successful hobby? Was it a successful career? That's like, I think where, like, successful, the term becomes so gray, because, success, we could be successful in the garden, we can be successful in our hobbies, we can be successful in our careers, and it's just like, to me that was a successful hobby. So and I knew it would come to an end, because I knew that, that the hobby itself wasn't something that, I necessarily stopped more per se, but it's more so like just the evolution of knowing what you want to put your time and energy in, because it always evolves. You're not going to be, it's the concept of like people thinking that there's such thing as like a dream job, when really it's like, the dream life that we're all striving for. It's like, this position that you dreamed of and you got is going to be, most likely dead and gone within a year or two. You're going to want to evolve. You're going to want to, go up. Some people might be content. That's totally fine. They might find, they might find evolution outside of, the career. And that's like, why obviously we shouldn't like, judge anyone because we don't know what's going on, especially if it's people we don't, hang out with outside of, our work or, what we're involved in. My boss, always tells me he likes how I like silo my work, because I just, I do my work, I don't really talk to anyone, and then I go home because I got other things to do. Like, I'm friendly with my coworkers, I like them, but I'm not like, getting personal with them. I'm not like asking them to hang out outside of work, and it's like, so, but yeah, I think, because the people I work with, just because they're content with doing what they're doing doesn't mean that they're not successful with other things outside of, what I see. So yeah.
There's a great quote that I love that kind of explains or like wraps up what you just said, which is very, very insightful, by the way. Very, very insightful, that success is a moving target. We're always evolving and changing, and our interests and our energy moves from one thing to the next thing. It's like for you, it's like skateboarding, music, like all those things. The quote is, healthy things grow and growing things change. Healthy things grow and growing things change. So if someone is genuinely like healthy, they're going to be growing. And that's like, I think what you described is like, we all are looking for, what people want is growth. Like, if people are just like stuck and stagnant in one spot and they're not progressing in their skill or their relationships or whatever, most people tend to do poorly in that scenario, even if they don't realize perhaps how bad it is for them to stay in that kind of condition. When you get them growing again, it's like, this is good. And so we all want to be growing, but as we grow, like you said, like we change. Our hobbies change, our passions change, our skills and abilities and opportunities change. And so, yeah, success is kind of a moving target. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's the next thing that you would love to be successful in? Like you said, man, I was successful in music, but that was a season. That was like a thing that like has kind of come to a conclusion, and I'm happy with where that is. What's the next thing that you would love to say, man, I'm not there yet, but I would love to be really successful at this?
I think it's martial arts.
Martial arts?
Yeah. I think I finally have found like the thing that I want to do and want to be known for, like the rest of my life, essentially. Kind of going back to what we were talking about, like doing what you want.
Yeah.
I think I was having like an idea of we have our promotional ceremony coming up in early January at the martial arts gym for like, everyone to get promoted and whatnot. And not that I'm gonna like give a speech or anything to the kids that I coach, but one thing that I think would be beneficial for them to hear is to not be afraid of what you have to do, in the sense of having the not letting the world stop, because the world's not going to stop turning. There's many things that we as individuals fear, but we're not forced to be around those things. And it's, I think, one thing that societies can really have a benefit for is the whole coaching thing, and giving people access to more access to being coached, in the sense of because people have fears of things they have to do, like having to take care of themselves, having to find their place in their community, instead of just loathing away in their home or whatever. And at some point you won't be able to loathe anymore in your home, because how are you going to be able to afford it, so on and so forth. It's the dynamic of not letting yourself get so obsessed with money, and knowing that, okay, I have to make money to do the things that I want to do. I have a phobia of wasps. No one's forcing me to work with wasps or to be around wasps. It is scary. Living is scary, and responsibilities, are scary, and failing is scary. But those are things humanity has to go through. Each individual has to go through that stuff. For example, for me, even if this is a silly example, I always had and I still probably do have a fear of approaching someone that I am interested in, not because I fear their rejection, but there's this weird feeling inside of me that I think that they're gonna embarrass me or something, because rejection isn't an embarrassment. Someone can politely tell you, oh no, thank you, I'm okay. I've done that myself many times, and the situation was ended perfectly. So yeah, I think when it comes to the things that we have to do in life, fear can't be an option, especially if for a successful society, because like I said, everyone fears something, but we don't have to face it. We don't have to quote unquote facing those fears. We can do that whenever we want. No one has to be forced to face their fears. It's a very liberating thing for an individual, of course. But there's also, the things in life that we have to do that, most people might not ever, have to face their fears, because they're doing the things in life that they have to do. So.
And sometimes the things that we have to do, or the things that we want to do have a lot of fear involved. Sometimes sometimes there's fear out there. It's nobody's forcing you to go play with wasps. Wasps are the worst, man.
Right.
Absolutely. I used to have, that was legit fear of mine as a kid. I would wake up having nightmares that I was being chased by bees and wasps, and I would be at my parents' bed Mom, there's bees. So yeah, I'm with you on that, man. It's worse. But fear is a good thing. I have this conversation with a lot of men that I coach in business and in life, and fear is a good thing. fear is the thing that, you get to the edge of the cliff and you're like, whoa, the fear of heights. You're like, yeah, well, what is that fear? It's telling you that there's danger and for you to back up. The fear of wasps is probably a good thing because, like, some people, you get stung by a wasp, you're dead. You know what I mean? Like, some people are definitely allergic. Some people, like, maybe you don't die, but man, it sucks. It's a bad day. You know what I mean? It hurts. And so that fear is programmed into us to protect us from danger. The problem is sometimes fear keeps us from doing the things that we need to do. Sometimes fear keeps us from doing the things that we should do. And fear isn't always rational. And fear sometimes, if we let it, can get out of its proper place and become, rather than just something that causes us to think twice about what we're doing, we let it control us. And fear keeping you from doing something stupid is a good thing. Fear keeping you from doing something important and valuable and good is a bad thing. That is called, fear keeping you from doing something stupid is called wisdom.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm afraid of jumping out of a plane without a parachute. And I shouldn't. Right. Like, that's wise to not do that. But I'm also afraid of making YouTube videos and looking less than professional. I'm afraid of, signing up for something like a Spartan race that I did this year that I failed at. I didn't make it to the finish line. And I'm afraid of, going and asking people for money and like trying to sell stuff or making content or starting a business or whatever. I'm afraid of, losing money. I'm afraid of what people will think. And the reality is that, like, fear, when it keeps you from doing the right thing, is actually called cowardice. And that was actually, I have this like wall of like quotes and stuff back here behind us. Like cool. Just stuff for that, like here, it's impactful for me or for my clients, and I write it on the wall, so I'm like working out back here, like doing deadlifts.
Nice.
And I'm like looking at these quotes. But one of the quotes on that wall that I love is this, that I would rather be a failure than a coward. I would rather be a failure than a coward.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I would rather do the thing that I'm afraid of and fail at it than be a coward who didn't try because of fear.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's, for me, I'm thankful, the things that I, want to do, have to do. I do, catch myself getting a little bit of anxiety here and there, making a decision just because, you think about like, oh, what if I make the other decision, so on and so forth. But I am thankful that, fear hasn't stopped me from doing the things that I do or being the person that I, am trying to become throughout life. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you said. Did you meet your wife in New York or here?
Great question. I actually met Lucy, my wife, in Mississippi. She grew up in Mississippi. I grew up in New York, and somehow now we're both in Kentucky.
Okay.
So so that job that I told you I got, traveling around running events for this nonprofit, eventually I got to the point where I was running the conferences and speaking events for the CEO, and he was sort of like this, international, like famous public speaker, and he would go around and like preach at churches and stuff. And so I ran all of his events and traveled around with him. But while I was traveling around to like these different churches around the U.S. and running these conferences and events, we went and did a conference at this church in Mississippi, and we would always have like a bunch of like resources and books and stuff like that we would sell, kind of like do a big retail display, and I would run the retail side of things with a bunch of volunteers from the church. And so Lucy, my wife, and her sister, her twin sister, and her mom at the time volunteered from the church to like work at the book table. So that's how I met her and her family. But she was only 17 at the time. So I met her and her family, and we just kind of hit it off, but it wasn't like a relationship at the time. I was 21, she was 17, and we connected on Facebook, just me and her family. Then a couple of years later, when the Ark Encounter opened in Northern Kentucky, they were like, "Hey, are you still at Answers in Genesis? We want to come see the Ark." I got them like backstage passes and took them around the tour of the entire place, and spent a lot of time with them that weekend. That's when we actually really hit it off, and we started talking a lot more. At that point, she was, I guess, 19. I was like 24, 23, and we started dating the next summer. So we kind of talked for a number of months, started dating the next summer, got engaged the next summer. But the funny thing about that conference was at the time, they had like a number of different speakers that would go and do these events. But the one speaker who was doing the event and speaking at the church, at Lucy's church in Mississippi, he was like Australian guy, and very much like would give me a hard time about stuff, and just like always just fun guy, but always ribbing on me. And at this conference, at this church, he ended his talk on like Sunday morning, and he's telling about like the books and stuff out in the lobby. He's like, "We got all these books out in the lobby, like all these resources. And if you have any questions, my assistant Cody will be out there in the lobby to answer your questions. Cody, stand up." And I was like, "Oh, front row." Stood up. It's like, "By the way, ladies, he's single."
Oh
and like everybody cheered. They're like, "Yeah!"
That's funny. That's great.
And then that evening, it's like everybody laughed. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Didn't know that he was going to do that. That evening, totally didn't know this either. We got back for the evening session at the church. And he gets up on stage and he says, "Before I start my talk, I just want to start with this very important slide." And he puts this slide up on the projector. Cody's phone number, 1-800-SINGLE.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
that's great.
Dude, it was terrible and hilarious. But the funniest part, Zaid, was that all these like old ladies, this was in like Mississippi, so like deep south, all these like old ladies were coming up to me like, "Darling, we're going to find you a sweet Southern girlfriend, a nice Mississippi girl, like they can cook and clean." And lo and behold, that was where I met my wife. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, you have so many success stories. It's amazing to hear. That's definitely like, the ideal sort of situation to find, your partner doing the thing that, means the most to you, being in an environment around people that, you have a trusting sensation about, not meeting them somewhere, like
let me pause you there.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's something, I just kind of had an insight, which is, you said, "Man, you have all these success stories." And it's true. Like, marriage is one of the greatest successes of my life. Marrying Lucy is like the pinnacle, aside from like placing my faith and hope in Jesus Christ as the Savior of the world, who takes away the sins of the world, and the only person through whom we can be reconciled to God. Aside from that, like, marrying Lucy is the greatest pinnacle of success of anything I'll ever accomplish, like regardless of how much money I make in business or anything. Like, marrying her, raising our kids, is the coolest, most successful part of my life. But I skipped a lot of the story. I didn't just waltz in there and just know that she was the person I was going to marry, and we got married and sailed off into the sunset. And I think a lot of people look at success that way. It's like, "Oh man, like that guy, just like everything comes easy to him." And it could sound that way just from the conversation that we've had. The reality is, ever since I was like 13, I was like, man, all I want to do in life is get married and be a dad and have kids and be a husband. But the path to getting there was really difficult and really painful. I went through a number of very difficult, painful relationships in my early 20s, very messy breakups and heartbreaks, to the point where when I met Lucy, when we first started talking, I had actually just gone through a really difficult breakup again after like the third time. And I told her, I was like, "Hey, listen, I'll be honest with you. I really appreciate our friendship, and I really don't want to mess things up because I value this friendship so much, but I don't want it to end, but I'm also like, I'm not really eager to go pursue a relationship with you at this moment, because like things have just been really rough and it's been really hard and really painful, and I'm just not in a rush to like go back and do that again. And she was incredibly patient, incredibly gracious with me, and time and truth go hand in hand. And as we just sort of, it's like, hey, like, let's just not rush into like making it some kind of official relationship or whatever. And things became clear that she was the one. But I say that just to say, behind most of the overnight success that you see in people's relationships or people's businesses, the reality is most of the time there's a long, slow process of difficulty, of work, of failure, of pain, and of struggle. And even like, people are like, man, like you made like 6 figures in the last like 6 months or whatever in this coaching business, and like next year is like gonna be crazy. Like, that's insane. Like, how do you do that? I'm like, yeah, like I didn't just arrive at the top of the mountain. Like, I've, for the last, year, for 6 to 8 months, I like lost my job last summer and spent like 6 months. Oh, there's our timer.
Oh, okay. We'll keep the conversation going, and we'll end it. Come a good time. So
for like 6 months, I struggled trying to figure out what I was trying to do with my business. We were living off of our savings and watching that number go down. And before just trying different things, and things started working. And so all that to say, success is not instant in anything, and you don't want it to be. Like I wouldn't have, I think, the relationship that I have with Lucy, for example, and appreciate her the way that I do if I had not gone through those difficult relationships that broke my heart and that I wished it never happened at the time in my early 20s. And so to anybody watching this who's going through the difficult season and you haven't gotten to the like success part yet, like, you're not behind. Just keep going. You're going to figure it out.
I couldn't agree more. That literally was, when I say success story because I think just because it's something that I want to achieve. Of course, I think it's something that we all should achieve in regards to. So the specific of finding the person for us, not just not just relying on going out to going out at night and trying to find someone like that, or I mean, you just never know, what life has to offer to you, and yeah, I mean, when it comes to success, definitely, no one can be successful without being a failure, even if we're talking about people that are handed everything that it. To me, there are 3 universal laws each human, goes through, that has gone through, is going through, will go through, no matter who you are, no matter if you're, an underprivileged boy that needs to wake up at, dawn every day and works till dusk to make ends meet for his family, or if you're the president of, the most powerful country in the world. We all are born and we die. We all have good and bad in us. We all experience good and bad. Even the most depressed person, has days where they smile or they laugh, and even, no one can say that they have lived an objectively, happy life because of the struggles and the failures that come with it. And then there's, us as individuals and the world around us. And, and this is just my, interpretation of it, that, we don't owe anything to the world and the world doesn't owe anything to us. And that's essentially what gives us the ability to think with empathy, the ability to be hurt, the ability to, that's why, people, families, backstab each other, friends backstab each other. That's, blatant proof that, the world doesn't owe anything to, me as the person experiencing it, but also I could be doing those same things to other people as well, in the sense that I don't owe that stuff to the world either. So why would I want to do bad things to a world that doesn't owe me either good or bad? Obviously bad things are going to happen. We shouldn't ever, do good things and expect good things to happen. We should just do good things and, carry on without having to worry about it. Expect bad things to happen and, just be prepared to tackle them, so on and so forth. So back to, talking about success and whatnot, though I think, for me, when I, was able to, have that sort of, thought about, what every human goes through, it gave me a better understanding of, how to go about, failure and, not worrying so much about, success, because success, is ever evolving. It's not something that, you just find it right there. It's, it's not something we can point to. It's, yeah, but the timer did just go off, and we could continue this conversation for hours, I feel like, and I'm definitely excited to have you back on at some point, continue this evolution of new friendship and whatnot. So yeah, Cody Lutz, I appreciate this conversation, and I appreciate you doing this.
It's been a lot of fun, Zaid.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you
bro.
so much. Yeah, appreciate it. Awesome, man. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for watching. It means a lot. Don't forget again to subscribe, like, dislike, leave a positive comment, leave a negative comment. I don't care. Thanks again for watching. We'll catch you next time.